Um, Good morning or good evening to all of you listening, based on whatever part of the world you are in right now. And welcome back to Rethinking Legal Ops, where we have forward-thinking conversations about the many ways legal tech and artificial intelligence are transforming the way we practice and know law. Today we have an amazing guest, Raquel. She is a lawyer from Portugal, has extensive experience in law and policy, and is also another legal tech enthusiast, just like us. And I'm your host, Aishwarya. I'm the head of legal at Speed Legal. Raquel, it's wonderful to have you here, and thanks for taking the time. I'm really looking forward to talking with you about legal tech in this episode.
Yeah, thank you, Aishwarya, and thank you, Speed Legal and Hans, for this invitation. And it's a pleasure to talk about it. It's a movement that legal tech is a movement that it's really a topic that's really hot right now. So, yeah.
Awesome. Just to kick things off, could you tell us a little bit about your journey as an attorney and how you ended up becoming interested in legal tech?
Yeah, for sure. So I have more than 15 years experience as a lawyer. I started out with my internship, but then I traveled a little bit. I worked a little bit in diplomacy in Timor-Leste and New York. I also spent almost 3 years in Mozambique. So I got to see a lot of how legal is worked around the world. And then with the pandemic, I also spent almost 2 years in the government here in Portugal. So I got to see it from the public and the private client point of view, how legal works for each entities. Before the pandemic, I started getting a lot of notice of legal tech themes around the world, and particularly new ways of working. And so the pandemic allowed me to, my time was more freely dealt with. So I started studying these kind of themes. How can we work in legal, with legal, through different manners, not only for internal matters in law firms, but also to consumers? How can we reach consumers in different ways? How can we bridge the gap for all the unmet legal needs there are? And throughout the pandemic, I went to Nova School of Business here in Lisbon, and I started studying innovation in general, and then I applied it to legal tech in particular. I talked to a lot of people. LinkedIn is a great community for that. And I started rearranging my ideas there. And that's how I ended up here. And then I was invited to write about it, either in the Portuguese market or the European market. And that's it, basically.
That's great. And that's a very thoughtfully crafted career path. I really admire that. Like, you were thinking through like the different needs within the industry, different needs of the consumers, and also, doing a lot of knowledge building along the way. That's very entrepreneurial. I love that.
Thank you.
Raquel, just want to get some of your perspective about what are some of the biggest legal tech trends happening in Europe at the moment?
Yeah, so I think legal tech in general started more on e-discovery, right? So how do you gather information? How do you analyze information? Legal research. I think right now, the legal trend that is very hot is CLM, so contract lifecycle management, and document automation. But I think the future, which is peaking right now, and it's talked here and there, is actually data analytics. How data is going to influence and impact research, targeted services. How are you going to analyze all these data? Law firms and legal general counsels as a whole, we have all this unstructured data. Not only from our clients, but also data that we produce, outputs that we give to clients. And I think the future is going to be data analytics as applied to legal services. Also compliance, of course, risk management, preventative law, not only solving the problem, but working before the problem, for the problem not to arrive. And also, I mean, legal education in general, as we were saying, I don't know how much of this is getting to the consumer. I know there are, I love Do Not Pay, for instance, there in the US, that's targeted to the consumer. But I think here in Europe, we're more on the side of educational literacy first, and then maybe reaching consumers on the other side. So I think maybe these trends, education, compliance, and data are the ones that are going to be the future. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Cannot agree with you more. In some of our previous episodes, they've also, talked about how lawyers need to, start thinking, like innovators and leverage those data insights to provide not just legal advice, but, craft legal solutions, like
Yeah,
innovative
for
legal
sure.
solutions. So yeah, that's definitely the future, and there's already companies working on creating structured data out of contracts and legal documents. So very excited to see where that goes. So just going off of that, I'm also curious, what is the overall attitude of businesses in the EU towards automating their legal work, or just towards their legal work in general?
Well, I think we're still because there's not. We'll talk about it later, but because there's not like a policy on legal tech in EU as a whole, there are like a little regulation here, a little regulation there. I think businesses are still suspicious, most of it, of legal tech, and but this is because they're used to the normal rendering of legal services through law firms and etc. etc. But I think they will be actually the drivers of change also, because I mean, all startups or all SMEs are now very agile, right? They need fast solutions. They fail fast in order to then backtrack or implement other solutions, and that is not compatible with the normal state of rendering legal services. And as we were saying, legal cannot act only on problems. Legal must be a business partner along the way. So I think clients, SMEs, and US startups, despite being suspicious, will come to claim more and more legal as a business partner from the beginning, and that implies the use of legal tech, if not for everything, then from admin stuff or menial stuff, or even co-creation of stuff, instead of exchanging I don't know, 5 emails and 10 phone calls. I mean, you can actually insert all the info once, the client, and then work about it, right? Even if it's only for an NDA or for, I don't know, a more complex contract. But even though there's not like a policy, I think clients will are already asking for more legal tech. I mean, I don't know if they know what legal tech is, but or if tech is even a thing, or I mean, this is a conversation for another podcast, but I like to think of legal tech as more tech than legal tech, right? It's tech that aids legal, not necessarily legal tech. I like to think of it in broader terms as legal innovation. They will for sure ask for that in their services. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, and totally agree. I think like it will be the businesses that will be like the leaders in bringing legal tech more to the forefront, because
Mhm.
lawyers tend to be like that, like reticent. And what you were talking about, it made me think of this one article that I'd read a while ago. I forgot who it was by, but they talked about how legal departments, they're understaffed, they're overworked often, and despite all of that, they end up becoming these like bottlenecks, like towards the
Yeah.
execution of a
Straight
campaign.
jackets, right? And like we think of legal as straight jacket, and legal has to give the freedom of these businesses that are starting or beginning in the digital era to just be like, you can innovate within this legal environment, not like, okay, so restrict them. I think we can be real business partners, and that legal tech will help a lot. Yeah, for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, part of it also comes from, empowering, non-lawyer team members to be able to
Exactly.
understand documents much quicker. So like you were saying, not everything has to be like, a 5, 6 email exchange with the legal department that's already, just overworked. And so like a lot of like the SMBs, they're asking for legal tech. But apart from, businesses, what are some of the things that the government has been doing or can do? You talked about like there not being that much of a policy around legal tech, but how do you envision policy making from the government that can support and encourage the legal tech industry?
Well, I think we don't have to invent anything. We can just look at our Anglo counterparts and give reins in order to play. Actually, we can give them sandboxes. So if you want to reach more clients, if you want to help SMBs, you have this sandbox. Within this sandbox, you can do whatever you want, fail fast, learn fast, and then develop a tool. I think there are countries that are already doing that. I told you that there's not a specific policy at the EU level towards legal tech, but towards legal services per se, or professional services as a whole. There's a ruling, not a ruling, but I don't know if it's a directive or not, but that says that professional services should be multidisciplinary, and I think that's a requirement of the future as well, if not right now with the present, because as you were saying, we will need alongside lawyers not only non-lawyers but also, I don't know, IT people, accountants, architects, engineers, in order to work in these latest technologies we're hearing about every day that are speeding up everything. You don't have to have a policy, but you have to allow for these different types of legal services to try and fit more and reach consumers and reach citizens and reach SMBs in order to help them transition into this digitalization future. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, on that front also, with regards to just, like the push, like the different, like, factors within the market that are encouraging legal tech right now. You already mentioned some like the small, medium-sized businesses, but there are a lot of startups that are, booming in Europe right now. Lots of really cool, exciting innovation happening. How do you think legal tech tools can be a big ally for those startups?
Well, legal tech will eventually optimize every admin menial task you have to deal with, as we were saying, as we were commenting before. It will also help with pricing, with maybe starting to destroy. I mean, destroy is a great a big word, but maybe starting to reach alternative forms of that don't necessarily are upon the billable hour. Also, I think EU startups will benefit a lot from, as you said, alternative legal service providers. You don't need a lawyer for everything. You can actually just manage a project through legal ops, through a group of people that of course include lawyers, but also include other professionals. So in order to profit from this boom you were saying of EU startups that are really exciting, legal will have to use all these tools, legal tech or not, but tech, innovation, whatever you want to call it, in order to keep up. Otherwise, we'll be, well, I don't know, in the 20th century, which is past right now, right?
Yeah.
It's weird to think about that because I was born in the 20th century. But yeah, we have to be forefront in that. Otherwise, we'll just, yeah, not accompany the progress that is being made.
Yeah, absolutely. And, which is exactly why having these types of conversations today is very important, because this is what the tomorrow of legal services is going to look like. And it's already changing so rapidly. You mentioned the billable hour model. Can you talk a little bit about, how law firms like lawyers in, Portugal approach that? Are the business or revenue models for the legal industry mainly based on the billable hour, just like it is here in the US? Because over here it's just sheer billable hours, like all the associates, all the partners. That's like
Yeah.
the whole part of the job.
I think that's still the whole part of the job globally, right? Billable hour is still king among legal services, not only for clients, but also for metrics for associates, as you were saying, for measuring productivity. So I don't think in Europe there's a big trend of changing that, but you see also alternative fees settlements, like fixed prices, or maybe project pricing instead of monthly billable hours, so as not to surprise the clients. I don't think clients are today are not very tolerant with getting a bill at the end of the month that they don't know what the, like 20 hours for what, two contracts, what is this, right? So uh, again, clients and users and consumers will drive that change, I think, because a lot of other professionals are already on alternative models. I mean, accountants, you have to be able, as a consumer, always require a budget, right? So I think the billable hour will still remain that, but in parallel, in tandem, you will see alternative models of pricing. You have to. You need to be more agile than that in order to survive. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that is something I've also seen a little bit in, like, the transnational, like, business transactions, where an entity from a different country is coming investing in another, and they're retaining a
Mhm.
law firm there. So where I am currently, traveling in Vietnam, like a lot of law firms, I was talking to some of the attorneys, and they've started using the fixed fee model. Like, they just
Yeah,
charge like a fixed fee per project, and that's very interesting, because when I was studying law in law school, I never thought that type of, like, paradigm shift in the way that law firms bill was ever going to happen. And I'm not a huge fan of the billable hour model myself, because I think that not only is it bad for efficiency, and for creating a change towards a better way of practicing law through automation and leveraging the different tech tools we have. I think it also impacts just the overall, conception of success, as you were also saying, like the metrics for
completely.
measuring
Yeah.
productivity, and
Yeah,
that's just
I think it's a flawed system by nature, right? Unfortunately, I don't think a change is going to come as soon as it will be required. Maybe not only clients, but also as maybe a little going into your next question, which relates to mental health. I think also associates, new people that are coming into this legal profession. We'll see no point in being measured by a billable hour. As you said, it doesn't drive efficiency, and also it actually fuels that associates that want to keep up with objectives, with KPIs, put even more hours into it, spend more time in the office, and now. Thanks or not to the pandemic, but the pandemic has surely sped it up. You actually want to have a life outside of the office. So you cannot be penalized for wanting to have a life, right? And while you still keep up with your objectives and your KPIs. So I think there are a lot of mini drivers of change towards the billable hour. I don't think it's going to be as soon as we want it, but yeah, there must be alternative pricing mechanisms for sure.
Yeah, totally. And you're just going off of your point about, mental health as well. It is Mental Health Awareness Week in Europe right now, so it's important to also
Exactly.
address like the elephant in the room, the
Yeah.
fact that mental health is not in the best state in the legal industry, to the point that it's almost accepted, to the point of having sarcasm around it, or memes around how
Yeah.
anxiety and substance abuse is normal in the legal industry. And
Burnouts and yeah, everything. I mean, you don't even talk about most of things like abortions that happen, divorces. There are a lot of things that happen while you're a lawyer that affect your mental health, and you want, as you said, you want to focus on mental health, not mental illness, right? And in order for that to become a reality, you need LegalTech. I mean, I think more and more people, in order to apply for a job, or associates will necessarily ask, do you use LegalTech? Am I gonna have to do admin stuff, or review like 1,000 contracts, or do you have tools that do that? Because I think, as we were talking measurements or metrics, one of it is it's going to be retention of talent. There's this great resignation we're all talking about, right, in big law, and I think law firms and legal services depend on the human factor, and we cannot only measure like billable hours or profit, or if you don't take care of the human factor, then something it's not gonna work. And I think you see that trend that people will start asking in interviews and in job postings, do you use tech? Do you use legal tech? And that also will be a driver of change for adoption of legal tech, which is another point. Where you can actually purchase legal tech and then don't adopt it. But yeah, the retention of talent in big law or law firms in general, I think it's going to have to be a KPI. Can you keep your talent? Are they resigning? How is their mental health? Do you actually do something about it, or do you just offer wellness seminars, or right?
yeah,
And I mean, or doing something about it, I mean, you give time off, okay, but do you encourage people to actually profit from their time off, or
yeah,
do they think that they need to go to that billable hour objective, and so they don't take their paid time off? So that it's going to has to be a proactive cultural shift of the legal profession.
yeah. And paid time off doesn't mean no emails, right?
It should, though. It should.
Yeah. No one ever mentions that as I paid time off, and then you get.
Yeah,
But yeah, I can't agree with you more. And I feel that a lot of things, I love academics. That's like my core passion, and I do believe that change has to always come from, at least in the legal industry, it has to come from how we teach law and how we approach legal education in general. And because a lot of these fashionable stress, or getting bragging rights or working late nights and things like that, a lot of that actually starts or gets worse in law school when you join, because it's a very
for
competitive
sure.
environment.
Yeah.
And you're consuming all this pop culture with all these depictions of lawyers
Yeah.
surviving in coffee.
Suits. Yeah, exactly. Suits.
Exactly, yeah.
Everything, everyone thinks suits is so glamorous. Believe me, it's not.
When you live it, it's really not.
It's really not. But yeah, you're right. It has to start there at the university level, because this is a course, a matter that induces anxiety from the beginning. You have to be competitive from the beginning in order to get that internship in the right law firm. So yeah, you have to start working there at the beginning. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And, how do you feel about, legal tech being integrated also into legal education? Because Gen Zs are already becoming lawyers. We're already at that. They're going to law school. It's coming. And I mean, it makes me wonder, like, what would it be like, if they were being given, these like legal tech tools to work with? Because there was a time, back in the day when, like our parents would have gone to law school or something like that, where they were not really using any Westlaw, like no Lexis or like, any of that sort. They were like looking for cases in the,
Books.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And now Westlaw is something that's you have to know it if you've got to survive law school. So do you
Mhm.
also envision, other types of legal tech tools and how they can be integrated into legal education?
Yeah, for sure. I think you need to teach while it's cool. You have to teach innovation for sure. Trends of innovation that are happening globally, that are happening more quickly every day. So I think legal students have to be aware of what's happening in the world, not only in the legal world, not only of past cases, precedents, whatever. You need to, like we were saying in the beginning, you need to know that data is going to be a thing. You need to know that compliance is going to be a thing. You can't leave law school blinded by only theory and doctrine and professors. And so, even if you don't teach about legal tech tools, you have to teach about innovation trends for sure. And yeah, as you were saying, Gen Z get their information out of TikTok, right? So we have to bridge that gap between Westlaw and TikTok. I don't know how.
I love that. That should be like a blog post. It's going to be like our next bridging the gap between TikTok and Vespa. I love that.
But you're right. I mean, yeah, for sure, there will be still traditional kids that will love all the study, all the things that surround law and legal traditional education. But you need to prepare them for the future, for what is happening. You can't teach law as if it's a separate, like, conglomerate of people that are put in a pedestal only because they know how to read like big books or they know how to interpret laws that are not drafted for the regular person. So we're not special. We're not. We're only actually translators or yeah, executioners of the law. So we need to teach kids how to not only translate and read law and be able to reach clients, but also uh, profit from all these tech. And that's what I meant before when I said that I don't think that I like the term legal tech. I think that I like tech in general, because um, uh, kids need to know what's happening, and also professionals that work right now, in order to incorporate that into their legal practice in the future. Otherwise, there'll be the gap will
God.
be even bigger. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I do agree with that. And I think it can also, just envisioning myself back in law school, and I was learning to, I mean, I didn't really learn to draft any contracts in law school. It's not something, that type of practical stuff is not something that's like really focused upon. I went to law school in India and then later from a master's in the US. And in both, those were not things that were focused upon. I learned the theory of law. I learned like the legal provisions and how to read them. But then
Mhm.
my first internship, I'm sitting there, I've been asked to draft a contract, and I'm just there like, um, how do you do this?
Yeah,
Like where do I
exactly. I
start?
know.
And I was thinking, like if there were some sort of like automation, like drafting tools that, students were made aware of, it could actually help them later on in their, careers as well to like, get over some of that initial anxiety of like learning how to, practice the law. Because
Yeah. Or even knowledge management, right? Because law firms are they retain so much knowledge, and most of them don't use it. They can actually use the tools, as you said, to automate process within, so that interns don't get there and see, how do I start, right? Like they
Exactly.
can help draft it, right? Because they retain so much knowledge and data and everything on contracts, for instance, or on other legal areas, that an intern should not get to that first day and say, how do I start? They should just be presented with all the tools and start working on them, right? And you also touched on a very important aspect, I think, but not only innovation or trends in innovation. I think we should also teach kids negotiation, soft skills, in order to see that law is not a hostile environment. Most kids look at suits, as you're saying, and say, okay, that's my enemy. No. I mean, legal practice is so much better when you don't look at the other of your opponent counsel as an enemy, right? So soft skills would also be really great to teach kids at law school, like negotiation skills, or I don't know, strategy skills. It could be seminars, but they are really important in our legal practice as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of a class that I once took at Berkeley. It was called International Business Negotiations, and it was a class co-taught with Stanford Law School. And both the teams, like we were supposed to be like the opposing sides of a negotiation, and we were negotiating a business transaction in some like fictional country, and then we would meet at a law firm office because the class was taught by like these two law firm partners. And our instinct in approaching that negotiation was, exactly what you said, like suits, like
Yeah,
they're my enemies. This is a trial, and I'm going to go and
exactly.
fight it out. I'm going to go argue with them. And as we, made zero progress in the first two sessions, we realized that, like, they're not our enemies. We're trying to do business with them. We're trying to form
Exactly.
a relationship with them, and hopefully a
Mhm.
profitable one. And that brings me to the point that a lot of these legal processes that go into forming that business relationship are extremely frustrating, because like the sales team, the marketing team, all of them, they don't necessarily understand, all these legal documents that then go to the legal department, which, it takes them a while to process and everything. How do you
Which is
think?
the enemy as well. Legal is considered the enemy. Yeah.
Yeah, like they always just delay things.
Yeah.
You tell
They
me.
need more days. They need more. Yeah. We want
Yeah,
an answer, yes or no, and they're like 3 paragraphs. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, like you may or may not do it, like, but it is up to you, not necessarily,
Exactly.
herein, therefore, thereafter, whomsoever, all those
We have
like,
to change that. Yeah, we have to change that. And that we can do as a society as a whole, not only within our legal profession. That legal is your ally. Legal can be your ally. Legal as a client, even as you said, in the situation of a negotiation I don't know, a transaction, the client wants that. The other client wants that as well. So it's a positive thing. It's not like me against you. So if you start by not raising hostilities from the beginning, if you start like understanding the other point of view and seeing my point of view and trying to reach in the middle, maybe that cultural shift also within, I don't know, big firms or big structures. I mean, like I don't now I don't mean SMBs, but yeah, has to be also a cultural shift within general counsels or legal departments within these big companies, that legal is not the enemy. Actually, legal should be with sales, should be with marketing, should be so that they know what's going on before you have to solve anything. So
absolutely. And how do you see, tech tools, like leveraging tech tools, helping businesses form these sort of healthy relationships, not just, within the organizations, but with other organizations that they're trying to, enter into like a business relationship with?
There are so many collaborative tools nowadays, right? And there are so many community building tools. So I think we don't need to, like we said in the beginning, exchange emails. We can all be kept up. We can all have the same info. There doesn't need to be an asymmetry of info throughout a transaction or throughout I don't know, a contract. Or if you can all keep up to date with all the info, even if it doesn't it's not relevant for legal or it's not relevant for marketing, but if you have it available somewhere, instead of having to call legal, having to call marketing, having to call billables, I think collaborative tools and community building tools will help a lot in order to change the cultural paradigm, as you said.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And, like the way I see it, it's like two things, like knowledge management, like first of all,
For
organize all
sure.
this knowledge that you have, exactly like you were saying, that we need to, we need to not just retain all this knowledge within the legal department and law firms, and like, open that up for others, to make them aware, to make them understand. And for that, we need to first make that knowledge accessible in an organized
For
format, so
sure.
knowledge management. And the second part is actually making it understandable,
Mhm.
because no one wants to read dense legal text. So perhaps like simplification of legal documents is it's the future. It's sort of like
Oh, for
paradigm.
sure. Language is the future for sure. I mean, not only consumer wise, I mean, even in these big transactions. I mean, companies get stuck with contracts for 20 years that they don't understand. And then other lawyers come, they don't understand it. Sometimes, as we were saying in the beginning, they even lose contracts. So we, there has to be, as you said, a concentration of knowledge, of management, of that, of accessibility, of standard terms, of anyone must be able to read into it now or 20 years from now if that contract is still up. So yeah, you're totally right. I agree with you.
Yeah. And you already touched upon this a little bit, like throughout your, your answers and like very insightful comments. But what are some of the areas that the currently available tech tools that we have are best at automating? Is that just, contract management, like knowledge management? Is that automated drafting? Is that analysis? How do you see, what are some of like the best tech tools, and for what purposes for law at the moment?
Well, I think the most effective tech tools right now for law are the ones that tackle things that you can actually put in black and white, like GDPR, like whistleblowing now. Whistleblowing tools are very much a thing now in Europe. Compliance tools. So I think data privacy in general, cybersecurity. I think these are the areas in which legal tech tools will be most effective, in which you will see companies actually use them and adopt them other than other legal tech that you buy and don't use. Because and this is curious, because these are all areas of law where there's a big regulation or policy making or legislation making. So it's actually the government that's driving the driving force behind these tools that just happen to pop now in the last few years of GDPR compliance and whistleblowing, which is really interesting now that I realize that I'm saying that, because I said the government doesn't actually have a proactive, or at least that I don't think at the European Union level, a proactive stand on legal tech, but actually while they put these regulatory constraints and straitjackets, they drive legal tech tools to be better in order for you to comply with all these regulatory constraints, right? Even now, the news that got out now of the Digital Markets Act will drive a lot of tools in order to comply with the law. So that's an interesting point of view, actually. That even if they're not proactively doing that, they're passively doing that. You need to
Yeah.
comply. So the market just comes up with solutions, tech solutions that have those results, legal compliance. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Sort of like a multi-pronged approach, sometimes unintentionally so.
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah.
but a good result. But a good result. So we'll take that. but um, but thank you so much, Raquel. This has been a wonderful conversation. Some of like the key
Thank
points
you,
we covered.
Aishwarya. Yeah.
The key points we covered were what are the different driving forces for legal tech in Europe and in general right now, how legal tech can help businesses form healthier relationships within their organizations, with their counterparts, and also, how hopeful legal tech or tech can be in building better mental wellness in the legal industry, because that is something we really, really need right now, and a very relevant topic, given that it is Mental Health Awareness Week. And also, perhaps a lot of this paradigm shift would be affected by the newer generation of lawyers, or the new businesses in the form of startups, or like the Gen Z lawyers who may learn to use legal tech tools, hopefully in their law school. So thank you so much for all your very helpful insights, and also want to take this time to thank all our listeners. Thank you for showing your interest in legal tech and attending Rethinking Legal Ops. We're here every Thursday talking about some of the burning topics in law and innovation, and thinking about lawyers as innovators. I guess that's like the highlight from what you're saying
Exactly.
today,
Yeah.
Raquel.
Mhm.
But thank you
Yeah.
so much. This is absolutely wonderful.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Thank you for the invite. Anytime. It was a pleasure talking to you.
All right. I will end the stream just now.